everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining me again in discussing properties of exponents. Specifically, we're going to be talking about when the exponent is 0. So we might be wondering what that looks like, and here are two examples right here. N to the 0 power and 8 to the 0 power. So we can see that we've got a variable and a number to the 0 power. So essentially, what does that mean? When anything is to the 0 power, we know that the whole thing equals 1. Okay? So n to the 0 power is 1. 8 to the 0 power is 1. Okay? So now let's look at some more examples. So I see I have 3x to the 0 power. So this 0 power belongs to this x right here, not the 3. So I'm just going to kind of circle this as a whole piece and know that this is a 1, right? So if I were to rewrite this, it would be 3 times, and that turned into a 1. And 3 times 1 equals 3. And that's your answer. I know it was multiplication here because these two, they were already touching. When a number and a variable are already together, when they're like kind of touching is how I put it, that's already multiplication. So that's how we know we are multiplying these two together. Now, when looking at this one, what do I notice a little bit different about it? I noticed that there are two parentheses right here. When I see parentheses, I know that this 0 is going to go to everything in the parentheses. This whole thing gets this 0. So I could even just circle this as a whole because of the parentheses. So I know that this whole thing is 1. Because it's the entire everything in the parentheses to the 0 power, and anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay, let's look at another example. So here I have 10 times mn, parentheses means times, to the 0 power. Now, what am I going to do here? I know that I have the 0 power, and it only goes to the m and the n. Why? Because everything is going to be distributed within these parentheses. So I know this whole thing right here turns into a what? A 1. So I'm going to rewrite our equation, keeping that in mind. So I'm going to say 10 times, and this whole thing became a 1. So 10 times 1 is 10. Now I'm going to show you another problem. Now this one may look a little bit more complicated because we have a whole bunch of different parts. We've got a couple of zeros in here. We got some letters and numbers. Don't worry. Just start identifying. Wow, I have a 0 for an exponent. What is it paired with? The a. So let me just go ahead and circle that so I know that's going to turn into a 1. Oh wow, this 0 would be distributed to this 2 and this a because of parentheses. Let me circle that. I know this whole thing would turn into a 1. This 0 and this 2 are paired together, no parentheses or anything, which means this turns into a 1. So let's go ahead and rewrite this equation, keeping that in mind. So we know we have 2 times, and this turns into a 1, plus this whole thing here turns into a 1, plus this 2 to the 0 power turns into a 1, and we can't forget our a. Okay, now let's go ahead and clean this up. Let me scoot this down a little bit. So we have 2 times 1, which is 2, plus 1, plus 1 times a is just simply a. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and combine our like terms. So we have, I'm going to rewrite this too, make it look a little bit smaller. Okay, now we are going to combine our like terms, so we know 2 plus 1, they go together because they're just plain numbers by themselves. They're not attached with a letter or a variable. We know they go together. So 2 plus 1 is 3 plus, and then A doesn't combine with anything, 3 plus A.